The restaurant labor shortage is crippling locations nationwide. But here's the shocking truth, it's not just about low wages. 70% of restaurant operators can't fill positions even with pay increases. Even with wage hikes, most operators still can't staff reliably. Turnover stays sky high, training costs evaporate, and guests feel it at the counter. Do you remember when restaurant jobs were stepping stones to management careers? Now it literally feels like they're just pit stops between TikTok scrolls for teenagers who quit within months. And here's the uncomfortable truth. After speaking with dozens of restaurants that are doing extremely well, the one thing that they are saying is that you cannot hire your way out. But what these winners are doing is two things: systemic automation and designing jobs people actually want to keep. And so in this video, I'll show you exactly how to do both, step by step, with examples that you can copy this week. And so in today's video, I'm going to go over 8 things: how to map the work like a factory, automate the repeatable processes, design roles around the guest, simplify the menu, train staff fast and consistently, schedule like a scientist, keep people longer, and measure what actually matters. That being said, let's get right into it. So number 1, map the work like a factory. What you need to do is start by pulling your processes into the daylight. And so what that means is take one busy service and map everything. So what I mean is from the door, all the way to the order, all the way to the customer paying, the making of the food, and the expo and the handoff. But what's very critical is that you want to time each process and the difference between the handoffs. Then once you've mapped out exactly which processes you are going to be watching, you want to allocate them to 3 different categories. The first one is going to be category green, and this is all about the guest-facing work. So greetings, the recommendations, how they're serving the customers at the table, and then more importantly, also resolving issues if something comes up. Then the second thing is going to be yellow, which is going to be prep and line work. So this is kind of that, redundant work that can't necessarily be automated straight from the get-go. And then the third category is going to be category red, which is all the repetitive admin work, such as answering the same phone questions, transcribing orders into a terminal, or juggling sticky notes for schedules. Now, with these 3 categories in mind, your goal is extremely simple. Remove the red, streamline the yellow, and protect the green. Red is redundant, yellow is important, but it can be streamlined, and green is your customers. This is the one that you want to protect with the most care. Now, to map this out, you don't need fancy software. All you really need is a whiteboard. I prefer that, but if you want to keep it digital, you can use a whiteboard or a canvas tool such as Miro. Now, once you've got the whiteboard, what you want to do is draw the flow. So count touches per ticket, which is super important. And then the other thing is run a bottleneck hour test. Now, what a bottleneck hour test is, find 15 minutes during a peak hour and tally where the tickets pile up. And so find out where the bottleneck is in your service. McDonald's famously choreographed inches of movement, and they're extremely good at this. Something Raising Cane's also did was limit skew so the line flows with fewer handoffs. And so when you map out all the different touch points where a customer might go through in a busy service, you're able to create a footprint and a blueprint around where the bottlenecks are and what you need to do to solve them. And by the end of the day, you should have a 1-page flow map with 3 red boxes circled. Those are your first wins. The red, which is the admin tasks, which are repetitive, the yellow, where you can actually streamline, and then the green, which is the customer-facing stuff that can be improved on. Number 2 is automate the repeatable. You're not replacing people. What you're doing is removing drudge work so that fewer people can do more hospitality. Now, the first thing that you want to do is offload ordering friction first. And so if you're a counter service restaurant, what that means is adding kiosks or QR codes at the table with preset upsells. And so what this means is guests are moving faster, your line is shrinking, and on top of that, your average order value climbs without extra training. And if you want to just look at the industry legends that have done this extremely well, Shake Shack has proved this multiple years ago. Now, the other big bottleneck is your phone lines, because those are a big leak. If your staff are ignoring calls during rush hour, you're losing orders and goodwill from your customers. And so the easiest way to solve for this is just to remove the calls off of your counter. Now, you might be thinking, how the hell do I just remove the phones? Well, the easiest and best way to do that today is to use something like an AI phone manager that will answer every single phone call instantly. It will take accurate orders, it will push smart upsells, and then send the orders straight into your point of sale system or your printer. Now, this works great for single locations who can't afford to miss a single order, but it also works really well for multi-unit operations, because when they have this sort of rush hour, they're able to reclaim a lot of their time, and staff can focus on in-store guests while orders keep flowing. Now, the third thing that you can do to automate the repeatable is standardize portioning. This is something that we noticed in our QSR restaurant that we ran, which is to have pre-weighted proteins, portion your ladles, and have squeezy bottles. I think the one issue that restaurateurs feel is that this feels very corporate. But this is not corporate. This is how the best, such as Chipotle and In-N-Out, get day one consistency and fewer remakes. The fourth thing is to bring in smart equipment where it counts, such as programmable fryers and ovens with timers and cook programs are basically like adding a calm, experienced chef who never forgets about the food. Chick-fil-A is goated at this because they use this to keep quality high with less oversight. The last repeatable process that is extremely crucial for you to take away is take admin off managers' plates. The reason I say this is because in our restaurant, we had this chaotic WhatsApp group where we would send texts about who's actually coming in today, and then on top of that also what stock needs to be bought in for the same day because no one had mapped this. And so what we did to solve this is that we had scheduling softwares in place to basically forecast demand and then have guardrails around stock to make sure we're never out of stock just last minute. And essentially what this allowed us to do, it allows us to auto-approve shifts inside our own rules and then give everyone clarity around what the roster is for the week. Now that you've kind of figured out all of these things when you're actually looking at the map or the blueprint that we had made, what you want to do is pick one red task from that map and then automate it in the next 14 days. Set a date, set how you're going to do it, own the responsibility, and actually execute it. In our restaurants, when we were training our staff and when we were looking at our operations, we considered reds basically a paper cut, and if we had 1,000 paper cuts, that is how you are going to bleed heavily. And the reason we use the terminology of a paper cut is because in the moment it feels very small, but there is something called death by 1,000 cuts. And if you're not managing your reds and you're not automating the repeatable, you will die by deaths of 1,000 cuts. The third thing that you want to do is redesign roles around the guest. Why? Because your guests are the #1 priority at the restaurant. So once your repetitive work is automated, merge jobs so you can run lean without burning people. Create a floater role. One person flexes between expo, food runner, and register based on live demand. Then you want to cross-train everyone to at least 2 stations. Write something called a rush script. So when you're at plus 20% volume, the team knows exactly where to move. Now it's really interesting. Back in my day, I was the captain of my school's sports team. And this is something that we basically did, which is if something happened, we would then change positions to mark other people. The best way I would suggest to look at this rush script is kind of look at the way as if you're managing a football team. Each single person has their position and role. However, if something changes on the field, they know what to do in certain scenarios and they are dynamic in their role and which opponent to mark. And so like I said, if volume stays the same or consistent, then everyone has their assigned roles. But if you're at plus 20% volume, then the team knows exactly who moves where. And so Sweetgreen runs a modular station so that a manager can redeploy instantly. So look at it like that. Copy that logic. Build a simple 3-column sheet. And so if the line is longer than 6 people, X moves to register, Y to bagging, and Z to expo handoff. Now with that in place, your team responds to volume instead of reacting to chaos. Now the fourth thing is to simplify your menu to speed training. And so what this means is that every item on your menu adds minutes to training and complexity to the line. And the reason I say this is because having a 50-item menu and so much variety doesn't actually make you a great restaurant. It makes you a culinary school. At least that's my opinion. And so the way to go about this is to pull a 90-day sales report. Cut anything that's under 3% of total volume unless it anchors your brand. That's super important. Now, once you've done that, convert builds to modular components. So 1 protein, 2 sauces, and 3 sides become kind of a dozen combinations with new training. Then lock the specifications around the food to the gram or the ounce. Take photos and then show the exact plating or what that should look like. And the reason I say this is because if you look at Raising Cane's, this is why they win. They obsess just over a few items. Chipotle, on the other hand, uses a handful of SKUs to create variety without complexity. And so that's a good way of creating that combination. And once you've done this and you have those SOP or menu cards around your new items, and you have the new structure around your line and how the line needs to operate, and you've portioned your ladles, your spatula size, whatever it is, what this allows you to get is faster training, lower waste, and tighter guest experiences. Now, number 5 on the list is to train fast and the same way every time. And so one of the mistakes that we made in our restaurants is that when it came down to the training, we had that information in our head. We never had SOPs or systems in place to transfer that knowledge without us having to be there. And so the rule of thumb is that tribal knowledge is why turnover hurts and system knowledge is why you survive it. Because if it's in your head, the reason it hurts is since you're the one that has to continuously train new people when they're added to your team. Whereas if you have SOP'd everything and you have a simple way of transferring that knowledge over to new people or new staff members, then you're able to survive turnover without it actually hurting in terms of you having to allocate time towards it consistently every single week. And so the best way to do this is to keep SOPs to one page, have it very simple so that new staff can easily understand what is on the page that they're reading, and make sure that you are heavy on photos in terms of food prep, but then also heavy on videos in terms of training. And so what I would do is use some simple format, such as what is the purpose of this SOP, here are the steps, here's what done looks like, and then common mistakes when following such procedure. And when you pair that with maybe a micro video that's 60 to 120 seconds, and when you have this type of SOPs in place, then it's super simple to transfer knowledge over to new staff members, especially if they're even a 16-year-old high schooler on a part-time shift. If you wanted to take it one step further, you could even pair that with a 60 to 120 second micro video, where on the SOP there's a QR code that can be scanned at each station, and then new hires can scan that and rewatch the training steps. In terms of actually training, I would do a 3-day ramp up. And so what that means is on day 1, you want to watch and shadow once they're actually taking that training and putting it into practice. Then day 2 is you actually demo with coaching exactly what they did right, what they did wrong, and how they can improve. And then the third thing is to actually put them to the test and sign off if they were able to ramp up. And in our personal experience, anything over 3 days meant that either our training was bad or the staff member just wasn't fit for the job. And the way in which we did this is we just copied in and out, because how they do it is they run station checklists to keep training extremely tight, whereas Sweetgreen on the other hand sticks to the QR code on each station. And so for you, you can do either one, or you can do both by just using a simple doc tool like Notion and using a QR code on that doc. And so if you wanted to do an action step, what I would do today in terms of training is create 3 new SOPs. The first one is how to greet guests and manage the front door. The second one is how to efficiently bag a to-go order. And the third one is portioning a certain type of item. And I know these things sound super simple, but a lot of these are just done by hand and mouth in our industry, and this is what causes us to fail at scale. And again, like I said, if you are filming videos, which is even better, don't worry about the production value. All you need to do is have consistency and ease of understanding for the staff member. Now, the 6th step is to schedule like a scientist. You see, unpredictable schedules drive churn. And so what you want to do is forecast labor to sales and then set guardrails. And so for example, if your lunch trade isn't busy, you want to be able to know that and then be able to schedule your roster based off of that. So maybe only 20 to 50% of staff or labor at lunch. Now, something that makes it super easy for you and the staff member is to publish these rosters 2 weeks out and then allow some sort of an app-based swap inside your rules. And so for example, if you want to again look at the big chains, Starbucks is a great example, because what they do is they combine app-based scheduling with role play and onboarding to maintain consistency at scale when training and managing their staff's rosters. And so what I would do is just steal the play, because clarity reduces stress, and lower stress is lower turnover for your staff members. And one more bonus, or a little secret that we actually did, was to pair both the schedules and the KPIs in one system. So for example, when you publish next week's roster, what you also want to do is add one visible KPI for the team. That KPI for this week could be a certain average order value target or an upsell hit rate. And so what this does is also ensures that your staff know what the goal is for the week, what their responsibility is when they're going to be at the restaurant, and how overall as a team they can drive both the restaurant's sales and the guest experience. Now, the 7th tip is around keeping people and why they stay. You see, when the labor market is short on talent, retention is recruiting. Show a path, build a simple career ladder from crew to trainer to shift lead with pay bands. People don't leave paths that they can see themselves growing in. What they do leave is dead ends. And this is an extremely important thing for any business, specifically restaurants as well, where if someone in the company or the restaurant doesn't know where their future holds or what their future holds, they don't have an incentive to stick around. And so pay for skill, right? Give a small raise for each station mastered and then offer bonuses for perfect mystery shops. With that, I would also offer flexibility with dignity. And so what that means is students get predictable school-friendly shifts, parents get blocks that actually work for their schedule and their kids. You want to also recognize great work, right? So shout out on the schedule, crew of the week or staff member of the week, and basically give either free meals or bonuses for the personal bests. And 2 great companies to look at is both Texas Roadhouse and Chick-fil-A. They both heavily invest in culture and recognition, and it shows up in their retention and their guest experiences. And so the easiest way to actually transfer this knowledge onto your staff is to create 1-page career path and then review it with your next 3 hires. And all you have to do is once they understand that, you'll be able to see how much more engagement changes and how much more people stick around because they can see their future in your restaurant. Now, last but not least is to measure what matters. One of the best principles that I've come across and that we've kept both in our startup and also in the restaurants is what gets measured gets managed. And so all you need to do is pick a short, sharp list of metrics or targets and review it every single week. So for example, you can track turnover percentages and time to training. And so a good target could be something like under 7 days to station competence. Another extremely important metric to measure is missed calls or abandoned orders, because if your phones are still manual, there's going to be a massive hidden leak in how much you're losing. And the reason I say this is because we work with hundreds of restaurant locations where we can see that before them using something like Certus, which is our AI phone manager that, like I said, ensures every single phone call is answered, orders are taken, reservations are booked, and upsells are triggered, they could have been losing anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 a month just from these missed calls. And so if you don't have your phones under control or aren't using an AI phone manager, that's likely a very big hidden leak in your restaurant. Now, once you've got a list of all the different priorities or metrics that you have in mind, run a 15-minute huddle every single Monday. See what improved, see what slipped, and add a new experiment for the coming week. And with this simple rhythm and consistent cadence, you both increase the productivity of your staff, you can increase your guest experience, and overall, the ability for your restaurant to run without you having to be stuck in the weeds of it. And like I said at the start of the video, and the reason for creating this video is, yes, you won't be able to fix the labor market, but what you can fix is your operations. Map the work, automate the repeatable, redesign roles around guests, simplify the menu, train fast, schedule smart, give people a path, and measure relentlessly. And like I said, if phones are your problem, and the reason I re-mention that is because I'm the co-founder and CEO of Certus AI, like I said, AI phone manager that answers every call, takes accurate orders, pushes smart add-ons or upsells, fully integrated with your point of sale system so your team can focus on hospitality, I would definitely suggest booking a call with myself or my team to see how we could potentially take that off of your plate, because very likely that could be a red on your blueprint of what is something that could be automated that consistently happens every single day. That said, if this video did help you, please do hit the subscribe button. And on top of that, go ahead and drop your biggest staffing headaches in the comments below, because I read them all and I'll build a playbook around the most common ones. That said, see you next week and hope you enjoyed the video.